Dr. Rebecca Harding is an economist and tech specialist.
At the moment, the biggest concerns are that there aren't clear standards, there aren't clear objectives, and the EU and the US have slightly different geopolitical motivations behind technology as well. So one of the things that this agreement will start to be able to talk about and start to be able to develop frameworks around is how to identify technologies that are key and how to support those within the framework of trade. So it'll be looking at creating common standards and common identification of technologies that are important.
Is this forum really about technology, or is it about security?
I think this forum at this very point in time is about recalibrating the relationship between the EU and the United States, full stop. It's not necessarily about technology. It's not necessarily about national security at this stage. It's about making sure that the two sides are still talking to each other. President Biden has showed himself actually fairly unwilling to put together trade agreements at the moment. That's not top of his list of priorities. But it is important that the EU and the US start to have a common understanding around how they're going to work together, as we're seeing, shifting centres of gravity in terms of geopolitical relations in trade.
How does the TTC sit in the more litigious environment of global tech, with the EU seeking to curtail the powers of Silicon Valley companies?
Well, I think, again, if this is going to be successful, it's about setting the frameworks for conversations and agreeing what those standards are going to be. The EU is a regulatory superpower, so it has the capacity to influence around $3 trillion worth of trade outside of the EU, just simply by the regulations that it sets. So it can do that in sustainability, it can do it in technology as well. So one of the problems that the US has at the moment is with the EU's desire to tax tech firms. And one of the strategies that the US has taken, and that was evident at the G7 and the G20, is to try and get round that issue by agreeing a global taxation rate for big corporations, particularly tech companies. So there's a framework for understanding there. The issue will be whether or not that framework can be implemented and relatively soon.
France, Germany and other EU countries generally are rather eager to avoid a new Cold War with China. Yet the Biden administration perhaps views the TTC as one of the primary vehicles to work with allies to perhaps curb China's growing influence. I wonder, how are the two sides going to reconcile that?
I think you have to look at the very different way in which the United States and the European Union have framed their latest discussions around strategic autonomy. The EU accounts for 32% of world trade, so in effect, it has a great deal of influence over the way in which, strategic power through economic power is implemented. The United States, on the other hand, has a different type of approach. I think what we're going to see in the future, though, is that this framework has a huge opportunity, and this isn't really being talked about at the moment, but I think it's a big area where we can actually start to expect something very ambitious. It has a big opportunity to start to work around sustainability, and I think that is where the EU and the US can align, and where actually there's potential for cooperation with China as well.